This week, I'm doing something I've always wanted to do. Make a spherical shaped Kumiko lamp. I need thin strips for the Kumiko panels, and for the strips I need 1/2-inch lumber. So I grabbed a couple basswood boards from my lumber rack and started planing them to thickness. Now, I've already made a more detailed video covering making Kumiko strips with power tools, so I'm going to kind of gloss over this part. After verifying a 1/2-inch thickness I'm looking for, I sawed thin strips between the blade and the fence. I'm intending for these to be the exact width of the blade kerf of my table saw. I zipped through this, and with all the strips cut, 14 60-inch sticks to be exact, I started cutting cross slabs. With Kumiko projects as big as this, I tend to count the number of cross slabs I need. For 20 hexagons, I need 280 tall and 140 short cross slabs. I'm cutting the tall laps first, and they need to be cut on both the front and rear angled fences of the sled. Remember, the key with these tall cross laps is that the two directions meet precisely in the center of the thickness of the strip, just like this. By the way, I've also made an in-depth video on the construction of this sled. I've linked it in the cards in the description as well. The short laps are made on both sides of one piece, using just one of the fences. It doesn't matter which fence, but you need to use the same fence for all these pieces so everything fits together properly. Using this fancy new folding Ryoba saw that Suizan Saws sent me, I spent a lot of time cutting strips into usable parts. The way these grids fit together is pretty cool. Let me show you. First, I take one 3-lap type A piece and put glue into the laps. Then I take the 3-lap type B piece and connect the center with the center lap on A to make this X shape. Next, I can attach the 2-lap type B pieces into the type A strip, making this sort of backwards uppercase N shape. The whole thing gets locked together with the second 3-lap type A strip, which forms two triangles that point to each other. From there, I just attach the 2-lap type A pieces on the outsides, then flip and add the last two 2-lap type A pieces. Rinse and repeat 19 more times, and I can start on the actual pattern. I already realized that the scope of this project was huge, so I decided to keep the pattern simple. I'm using the Asanoha pattern, which is striking, but it only requires bevels on the ends of the infill. No curves or anything else like that. After cutting a bunch of small parts, I started the patterns using the basswood and some recycled skateboard strips. Wait, did I forget to tell you that while I was milling the basswood, I grabbed some recycled skateboards that Ben at Woby Design sent me? I glued them up, milled them, and ripped them into strips for the infill? Oh, my bad. I started the infill by beveling one end of each piece to a 60-degree bevel. For this, I used the 30-degree side of my 3060 Kumiko jig. Pop quiz. If there are 18 infill pieces per hexagon and 20 hexagons, how many do I have to bevel? The answer is too many, but I would have also accepted 360. Now's the critical part. I want all 3 of these infill pieces to meet at the exact center of the triangle. This means they all have to be exactly the same length, with 60-degree bevels on each side. Using the 60-degree side of my Kumiko jig, I snuck up on this dimension for one triangle, getting it just perfect. And now my settings are locked and I can hammer out the rest. It was about this time that I started working at night to avoid the insane heat wave we were experiencing. I just put a couple of my favorite podcasts in my headphones and got into a rhythm and banged out all 360 of these pieces. With the infill finally cut, I glued them into place just like the grids, which isn't exactly traditional, but will help the overall rigidity of this 3-dimensional shape. I started using this thick glue, but I quickly changed to regular wood glue because I could pool it in this little silicone tray Rockler sells and dip the infill pieces into it. Super handy. Alright, time for a secret. I'm not even close to being perfect with my Kumiko alignment, and I make no apologies for it. To level the faces, I just took each panel over to my lathe disc sander. Little cleanup, and I could finally start to think about the shape again. So these 3D shapes that have polygons for sides are called polyhedrons. And this polyhedron is called a truncated isosahedron. It has 20 hexagonal faces and 12 pentagonal faces, and you may have seen one in your past. Also turns out, this shape has very specific angles that its faces need to adhere to. For the lamp, I'm really only going to need the hexagon to hexagon meeting angle, which is 138 degrees, give or take. Using some hopefully careful math, I figured out that to get this angle, I had to set my saw to 21 degrees from 90. Then I whipped up this quick jig to help me cut a bevel on each hexagon to hexagon meeting face. There's going to be 3 per hexagon. Cutting the bevels. And this is how they'll meet. A little CA glue for a quick bond, and then wood glue for a permanent bond, and I just held them together with a spring clamp. I put together 4 hexagons in this sort of shape, and repeated that 4 times. The remaining 4 hexagons are going to be connectors. Before I go any further with construction, I'm going to paper the back of the panels. I want to make sure I get all of the hexagons, but also all of the pentagon areas. I'm just using a little Elmer's glue to glue the paper to the panels. So finally, I glue up these 4 panels and the connectors, and a spherical lamp takes shape. Okay, phew. The hard part's done. Now we just have to give it power and a stand. Not even close to the hard part. The pentagons, now that was the most difficult part of this project, but I'll talk about that in a minute. I've had this really interesting lamp base hanging around the shop for a while, so I'm going to use it for this lamp. Alright, so this is a really decent prototype, but there are 3 things that I would change the next time. Number 1 is the lampshade. I really want to add frames around each of these hexagons to create a better finished look, because right now you can see all the connectors and it doesn't look super great. Number 2, I would make sure to account for the pentagons before I started because they were really hard to glue in. I actually had to fit my hand inside of one of the pentagons to glue up all of the rest. Not something I want to do again for sure. And number 3 is the base. This base wasn't really what I had in mind for this project. Just time ended up dictating that this base needed to be used. But I do enjoy prototyping like this because it lets me understand what the problems are that I'm going to face in the future. So next time, I think I'll implement these 3 changes and I think it'll be a lot better. If you want to learn more about Kumiko, I have a playlist up here with Kumiko techniques and projects. And if you just want to see another project, I have one down there that I think you'll really enjoy. I'll see you on the next one, and thanks for watching the Bike City Woodworks channel.